Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tuesdays with Trailblazers, brought to you by TechEdge AI, the video podcast where we bring you the latest trends and insights in AI and technology. I'm your host, Anjan, and today we will talk about Iterate.ai, who help speed up digital transformation in a modern way. The patented drag and drop low code AI app platform Interplay facilitates 17 times faster prototyping of digital AI and IoT solutions. And to share his journey, we have Brian Sathianathan, CTO Iterate.ai. Brian is a builder at heart, loves creating startups and products, and he himself is a co-host of a popular innovation podcast called thisweekinnovation.com. So without further ado, let's welcome Brian. Brian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Anjan. It's great to be here, and thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great. Brian, it's fascinating. It's overwhelming to have you on our podcast. We've had so many folks coming here, CTOs talking about a variety of technology, but I find it fascinating in terms of how you have carved a niche through Iterate, and how we probably know more about Iterate and what exactly is in your mind for the coming years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we are in this really exciting journey and time of AI. I was in a conference yesterday talking to a senior leader, and one of the things I said is this is the most exciting time to be alive. Uh, we are in this transitional time where I think AI is beginning to be that helper for humans and be able to provide, um, that fast growth, right? I mean, in the last 6 months, AI has grown generative AI specifically has grown 3,000 times, right? Imagine, if the airline industry grew at this pace, you could probably take a flight from New York to London under 5 minutes, right? So that's how
True.
fast it's growing. So it's great. Just to quickly tell you a little bit about Iterate.ai.
Mhm,
Iterate.ai is a AI platform company. We provide a platform called Interplay, which is a drag and drop AI platform that large companies, especially digital organizations, use to build and deploy AI applications 17x faster to the industry
mhm,
because it's like drag and drop, Lego type drag and drop. It's very easy to connect the software components together. And specifically right now with the bigger challenge of, AI penetrating into the industry really fast. And
mhm.
large companies have to upskill in order to keep up to that demand, right? So this abstracts all the complexities of AI and allows you to use AI with your existing engineers without hiring new engineers, which is actually a big benefit to companies, right? On top of Interplay, we also have applications that we are building. One of the applications is called GenPilot, which we've
Mhm,
launched, which is basically a imagine Copilot, right? But this is for your
mhm,
private organizations on your private documents. You can actually, like, if you're a procurement leader, if you're an HR leader, you can use your corporate documents without uploading them into ChatGPT privately, answer
mhm,
questions, right? We have another one for unstructured data called OCR Manager, looked at unstructured data coming on from corporate documents. We have a drive
mhm.
application that also powered through this type of capability through large language model. You can go into a QSR restaurant and you can order using your human voice, and on the other side, it's a large language model.
Oh,
It's humans
fabulous.
talking to you. Yeah. So these type of capabilities are possible. And we one of the things that's really fascinating about what we've done is there's a lot of companies coming in AI, specifically Iterate.ai from 2018 onwards, we've been doing AI. So we have
Mhm,
deployed our AI computer vision applications across 4,000 edge instances, across some
mhm.
thousands of stores, across 15 countries, right? So it's been already scaled. That's just the physical location or physical deployment and footprint. Now, in online, there are more than 40 million monthly unique users who use our applications built on top of our
Great.
of our platform. Yeah.
Fabulous. And just to understand, how are you addressing this misconception floating around LLM strategy, and what are some of the biggest myths businesses might be falling for?
See, I think there is a There is a misconception. I think there are several misconceptions, right? First misconception is this is going to take everything away, and it competition to me opposed to it's a helper, right? I think it's a misconception and a misunderstanding. Yes, AI will eliminate some jobs, but also the task that you do today will be a different task from tomorrow, right? So
Hmm. Hmm.
very procedural can be eliminated by an LLM. Tasks that are human relationship oriented will still continue, and LLMs will supercharge you, right? So today,
Hmm. Hmm.
early I remember in our marketing team, we used to have the marketing team. We have like 3 or 4 people. Every month we would produce 5 articles. Now we could
Hmm.
produce 200 of them, right? So it
Wow.
everyone's like supercharge it, like everyone can punch it, above their weight. So today, if you look at Iterate, we have 80 engineers. Right now, we
Hmm.
are building code generation and automated generated software. So eventually, our 80 engineers can punch at the weight of 800 engineers, and our 5% marketing team can punch at the weight of 50% marketing team, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so AI supercharges you, right? It's like a long time ago, Steve, in the early days of computing, Steve Jobs, then Apple CEO, founder, had a really interesting quote. He says, the way I think about computing is some
Hmm.
computing is like a bicycle for the mind, right? It allows you to go
True.
faster from point A to point B. And I think generative AI and large LLMs, large language models, are a supercar for your mind, right?
Hmm.
Not bicycle will get you at like 5 miles per hour or 10 miles per hour, right? At a max speed. This would and generative AI would get you from point A to point B with I don't know, like in a 2.4 seconds, right? It's a supercar. It's a supercharge, right? You're getting supersonic speeds for your mind. So I think it's really amazing. I think people should embrace it opposed to there are challenges, right? The other is, I think, this whole idea, second myth I believe in this whole AI industry is, I think there is there is a lot of misconceptions in terms of like, well, this is not secure, it cannot be trusted, right? The If you really look at all these things, in the early 2000 when the internet
Hmm.
came on the 1999, when internet revolution started, I mean, there were viruses everywhere. Everybody's computer was
True.
attacked. There are so many security attacks, right? But guess what? 20 years later, we have security companies, we have IT procedures, we have compliance procedures, right? So the same thing will happen in AI. AI will get, there will be the right standards, the right frameworks, right governance structures that will fall in place,
Hmm.
right? So you companies should not just simply say, yeah, just because I don't understand this, I'm going to shut this down. Right? If you shut this down, by the time you enable it back again due to peer pressure or the inertia in the industry, it'll be too late and you won't have the skill set,
True.
right? So I would encourage companies to be early adapters in this,
Hmm.
and then of course, anything, just like everything that's early, you will get the good, bad, and the ugly. But that's a process of doing business, right?
True.
Business is a process of managing risk. If you can manage risk and supercharge opportunities, then
Hmm.
that's how you win in business.
Exactly. I mean, I can't agree more. That explains everything here. Speaking about the cost, there's a huge price gap between different LLMs. But are there hidden beyond the raw computational power? Like, what is it? I would like to know more about it.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, right? This whole generative AI and the LLM business is a very pricey business to be in, right?
Okay.
But I think the interesting part is you have to look at what you're trying to do, what your use cases, because everything is
Hmm.
tied to what you're trying to do, right? There are two camps of the LLM world or the generative AI world today. There is one camp, like the
Hmm.
Anthropics of the world, the Chat GPTs of the Open AIs of the world, the Mistrals of the world. They are all building and training LLMs, right? Large language. They're making the LLMs. So
Hmm.
making the LLMs is very computationally intensive, right?
Okay.
Then there is the other part of the world where you are taking the LLM someone has made and you are making some tiny tunings or modifications on them. and then
Kind
using
of white labeling it.
yeah, they're taking it, but then they're customizing it for their industry,
Hmm.
for their
Hmm.
organization, right? There's a little bit of fine tuning that goes in, and then there's a little bit of there is this procedure called RAG, which means retrieval augmentation generation, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Basically,
Hmm.
giving your corporate documents or your domain-specific documents to an LLM and make the LLM sort of re-summarize and give you answers based on what's specific to your corporate, right? So
Hmm.
so the training, pre-training or the building LLMs is a very expensive camp. That's where you spend
Hmm.
billions of dollars in in NVIDIA equipment, right? The second camp of fine tuning and then constantly predicting, because it's like buying a car, right? So you buy a car every 5 years or 4 years, right? But you drive the car to work every day from point A to point B, right? So training is
True.
buying a car. You do it very infrequently, especially pre-training
Hmm.
using an LLM, right? But then inference or prediction is like driving a car every day, right? So
Okay.
when you are thinking about cost, you want to think about depending on what company you are. I mean, if you're an Anthropic, you have to also training is your main business. Building an
Hmm.
LLM, like tuning and building new LLMs is your job. So then your cost
Hmm.
is through the roof because you have to deal with that because you are the pioneer in the at the edge of the uh, you know the spectrum. But then if you are a traditional company, let's say you are a beauty company and you want to use large language models to respond to queries, or you are a travel company, a cruise company, and you want people to book using your automated LLM or an agent, right? A
Hmm.
high-powered agent. You are using a foundation model trained by somebody else. You are actually feeding the model your documents and your pricing documents, your product information, and you're not really training the LLM. You are just inferencing. I mean, using it to do prediction. So your cost can actually be controlled much better. On the second camp,
Hmm.
where when the usage of an LLM, cost can be controlled much better. If you uh, tap into existing services like ChatGPT and all, the cost is higher depending on what model you use. If you use the 3.5, the model 3.5 model, the cost is low, and if you use a 4 turbo or something, it's much higher, right? So the cost is kind of orders of magnitude, and it can sort of ramp up very quickly, right? You suddenly you can
Okay.
realize you're not paying. Your engineers would have tested something, and it would have cost them 200
Hmm.
month, and you put that in production in front of 4 million users, and you have I don't know, like a thousand, 2,000, 5,000 simultaneous concurrent calls. Suddenly your cost can just shoot up, right? The other way that people are also handling this is by taking open source LLMs like Llama 7 billion or Mistral, which is a great model, and then tuning them for your organization, right? In
Oh.
fact, we provide these capabilities in our drag and drop platform. You can pick an LLM you want, either a private one or a public one like a chat GPT, and you can tune them,
Hmm.
right? And then if you use a private one, then you all the only cost that you have is essentially the cost of the GPU, right? Whether
Okay.
you're running it on, but then you can run them fairly well on when you're inferencing, not training. When you're inferencing them, they run in a very scalable manner. You can do hundreds and thousands of sessions on on standard machines, right? The other thing that we've been working in the last couple of months with Intel is do the same thing, but if it's a smaller LLM, do it on CPUs, because every
Hmm.
organization already has paid
That's
money
smart.
like thousands and thousands of CPUs, and most IT
Yes.
organizations are already very familiar with deploying it in CPU. So depending on your
Hmm.
use cases, you can actually do inference on CPUs. And especially in areas like drive-throughs and all, where you have one lane and you only get like a couple of simultaneous calls, you can
Hmm.
do a very good CPU inference, right? And in real time. So we've optimized our platform with the help of Intel to actually work on CPUs and do inference on CPUs. And we've actually got like sub-second times, really good timings on CPUs, right? Especially with the
Oh, great.
Xeon, Sapphire Rapid type
Uh-huh.
CPUs, you can get pretty good responses. Yeah. So
That's
those things
nice.
will drastically bring your cost down, right?
Of course.
So the thing is that you don't need to be a rich company to play in the LLM world. You need to be a rich company to train in the LLM world. train or
Yeah.
like make a new, if you are making a new LLM by yourself. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
taking an existing LLM and fine tuning it, making it ready,
Mm-hmm.
useful for your organization, you don't need to be a rich company to do it. I mean, everyone can do it. And I encourage every enterprise to try that and do it. Yeah.
Of course, of course. I mean, that makes perfect sense. Now that everybody is jumping in the LLM train, will this accelerate our journey to achieving artificial general intelligence?
Yeah, I think we are getting closer and closer. I think I don't know. Earlier it was a 80 or 100-year journey. Now it's most
Uh-huh.
30, 40-year journey. It could even be shorter than that. Right.
Okay.
I think it's also interestingly, what's interesting though is for companies to really leverage AI and to create automation, right? You don't need a complete AGI, right? There is
Okay.
AGI that is, I mean, an AGI is it's basically it's like a bell curve, right?
Mm-hmm.
So AI can be, if you look at the bell curve, at the very bottom of the bell curve is basically where AI is not very useful. AI is only useful a little bit. This is 20 years ago, right? So
Mm-hmm.
now we are getting climbing the curve to almost to the top, right?
Mm-hmm.
At this point, AI is optimal, is at it's its optimum usage, right? So if you
Got it.
think about AGI and other things is if AGI completely comes to fruition, there could be a world where corporations don't need to exist, right? You
Mm-hmm.
may have a few, human face to the corporations, but the entire corporation could be run. Even countries could operate by a single AGI, right?
Wow.
Because that's
Wow.
the so you're going to the other side of the curve where
Yeah.
when it's not very that's when AI can actually do damage a bit. I mean, not bit, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, of
I think the
course.
top of the curve is where I think it's the best optimal value for humans and
Mm-hmm.
of AI. So I think we will reach the top of the curve in the next 2, 3 years, even without AGI or more advanced versions of LLMs, VLMs, vision language models, because LLMs is for regular language where you're using, and then there are VLMs and things like that, which is for vision, to
Mm-hmm.
because the human eye at this time, I'm looking at you, I am perceiving your, your signals from your face and your you speaking to me, but I'm also perceiving signals outside this entire computer frame, right? So thousands
Yes.
of data is fed into me. So vision is actually a very powerful way. And in fact, entering the founder of Landing AI has spoken a lot about it. I think it's so
Mm-hmm.
we will get to vision similar type of breakthroughs what we are getting in LLMs with vision also pretty soon, right? So then we'll have like all
Nice.
the vision and the sound and all that stuff, um, all captured through learning, through computing and predictions. Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. One last question for any organization unsure about which LLM is right for them. What's your best advice?
Oh, I actually have a nice slide on this. I can sort of share this with you afterwards. But at a higher level, it's about like I think about it like the maturity levels, right?
Hmm.
The very bottom of the maturity. So you're just trying to tire kick and learn how this world is. At the very bottom is at least at a minimum, have your employees use solutions like ChatGPT and things like that.
Hmm.
And if you want to use private documents, you can use a solution like what we have, GenPilot, where your documents are not uploaded to ChatGPT. But the idea is your employees are just using uh, LLMs that are packaged for you, but they are essentially using your private documents to answer questions, right? And in
Okay.
those solutions, we use Llama 7B Mistral, which is really good, which is a foundation model that is
Hmm.
fine for the organization. If you go one level above, you sort of look at, okay, can I use specific SaaS solutions that are using LLMs? So let's say for your marketing team, you want to write marketing briefs. And there are a lot
Yes.
of solutions that are actually generating marketing briefs for you, but they use an LLM. But those are SaaS
Hmm.
solutions. The LLM, you may not even know what LLM is, so it might be a proprietary LLM that they've tuned, right? Uh,
Hmm.
right. When we have a document LLM that we are using in our generation for GenPilot, companies like Writer, they have their own, Writer.ai LLMs, right? So that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
the second level of sort of your maturity of how you are using. So first is to have everyone interact with a chat application in your company. Second maturity
Correct.
level is sort of have them use a SaaS application, right? Third maturity level is where you are actually building an application using an LLM, but that's specific for your organization. Say you are building a chatbot to book your, let's say, like your cruises or your plane tickets, right? You're a travel company, and assuming you're a beauty company, you're building a virtual beauty advisor or a chatbot to talk to customers about
Oh,
beauty.
yes. Yes. I've seen them. I've seen them happening with a lot
Yeah,
of beauty companies. Yes.
yeah.
Go ahead. Please go ahead, Brian.
No, so
Yeah.
what I'm saying
You're
is
saying
that's kind of the
something.
third level of sort of maturity, right? So at that
Mm-hmm.
point, you want to use an LLM too. So in those scenarios, use existing foundation models, and you can fine tune
Mm-hmm.
with your beauty language or your content or anything you want to put in. So that's kind of the third level of the maturity. And then the fourth level is where companies are really looking at building something very specific to the industry. Specifically, if you look at like companies like JP Morgan and others, like for their
Mm-hmm.
finance needs, they've taken LLMs and they've significantly tuned the LLM with understanding of financial documents or things like that, right? I mean, they've so
Mm-hmm.
things like that where you do things that are very core to your business, right? Yes, right. So it's sort of like I call this the right tool for the right job. And what is your best
Yeah.
use case? You pick and I encourage all the companies to sort of play in at least all these four maturity levels, right? You can start
Mm-hmm.
with everyone using a chat type application, then use some SaaS application that has an LLM on it, then start using, build something where your consumers can interact with it, and then
Mm-hmm.
something that's very specific and builds IP in your organization, right? So
Correct.
that's kind of how you want to think about it, right? Another thing that I always talk about is this whole idea of the attention economy, right? So if you,
Mm-hmm.
from morning time to you wake up to the time you go to bed, Apple probably has 4 hours of your time because you're using your phone, you're watching.
I have to agree with this one.
Right? And then you have, and then I'm sure Facebook probably has another hour or two, right? So if you look at
I've somehow managed to stay away from all social media. The only media that I'm on is on LinkedIn. Other than that, I'm not there on
yeah,
any social
yeah,
media.
so Microsoft has your time, right?
Yes,
Their
yes,
own
of course.
right. So between the big companies, the GAFAs, Google, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and Microsoft, right?
Hmm.
All those guys, they significantly take significant portion of every consumer's time. So,
True.
in a 16-hour day or an 8, 10, 20-hour day, you probably have 80% of your time given to them, right?
I never
Or your
thought that way. This is
yeah,
quite insightful.
yeah, because based on the way their products are built,
Hmm.
you are as a
Hmm.
consumer, you and I are the product.
Correct. Correct. Anything, which has to offer a lot of things, at a very limited pricing, we are the product.
You're the product, right? So what's
True.
interesting though isn't like the traditional companies, right? The beauty
Hmm.
company who sell you makeup, the hairdressing company that cuts your hair, the barber shop, the gas station, where you pump your gas. Actually, they have a very sliver time of your entire life, right?
True.
We call the
True.
attention economy, right? If you're 16 hours of life, what percentage of your economy, of your attention is owned by whom, right? So traditional companies have already a very small, and that time that they have with your life in digital is becoming even
Hmm.
smaller, right?
Hmm.
But however, traditional companies do own data and do own information about you that the bigger companies
Correct.
have. Like when you go pump gas, Google probably doesn't know where you are pumping gas, right?
Yes.
So those are all that. So that data is important for traditional companies, and with this new LLM revolution, they should basically
Hmm.
train their LLMs with this type of data that they own and create better digital experiences for their consumers, so they can also participate in the attention economy and increase the
Actually,
time that their portion of the time interacting with the consumers, right? Because end of the day,
correct.
all the businesses are interacting, fighting for the time of your life, right?
Hmm.
So as companies think about it, they should think about how much time can I spend with my consumers, right? Because today I think it's done in a very they're not thinking it in a holistic manner. Like because traditional
Yeah,
companies, they look at okay, marketing campaign, I sent a bunch of things and a bunch of people clicked on. It's great. Like
correct.
standard metrics is great, conversion, engagement, average order values, they are great. But you also want to
Hmm.
think about, not just average order value for this your one product, but you have to think about holistically across all my offering. What is the mind share that this user has or this consumer has on my product?
Uh, Brian, I enjoyed hosting you on our podcast, Tuesdays with Trailblazer. And thank you all for joining us today. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review. And do check out Iterate.ai, who help accelerate development with their cutting edge platform Interplay. Until next time, stay tuned with TechEdge AI for more insights into all things AI and technology. Till we meet again, signing off, your host, Anjan.